Hi, everyone. We're excited to have the opportunity to discuss our community assessment findings, which relate to the state of animal welfare in DeKalb County. We partnered with Rosemary Cobo, member of the DeKalb County Animal Services Advisory Board, to assess current animal welfare initiatives in DeKalb County District 6 and to discover needs and recommendations to improve District 6 community health. So before we begin, we just want to thank all of our collaborators and contributors to this project. They really helped us with our findings and recommendations. And these include DeKalb County Commissioners Michelle Spears and Ted Terry, the DeKalb County Animal Services Advisory Board, advocates for DeKalb animals, community residents and volunteers at the shelter, and members of the Lifeline Animal Project.
To summarize the work that we have done this semester, our team conducted a community assessment in partnership with DeKalb County District 6 and with the support of Rosemary Cobo. Through this assessment, our aim was to understand current gaps in addressing animal welfare and identify ways to increase community involvement. Our group collected primary data through a combination of 2 key informant interviews, 2 in-depth interviews, and finally 2 focus group interviews. And through these interviews, we have heard about the main challenges faced by the community and identified 6 different needs. The first one is to increase community awareness and engagement. And then the second one is to provide access to veterinary resources. And then to dismantle economic challenges faced by pet owners and address their community needs, and then provide adequate shelter for all animals. The fifth need is to prioritize animal welfare as a public health concern, and finally to increase animal and human interactions.
So before we get into the purpose of this community assessment, there are a few important things to note about animal welfare. So animal welfare is used in this community assessment as the health and well-being of animals, which can include shelter capacity, reduced euthanasia of healthy animals, increased spay and neutering, and increased resources to community members caring for an animal, either the public or one of the shelters. Another important thing to note is that animal welfare is inherently a part of public health and always has been. Our community collaborator, Rosemary, very much emphasized this point to us, that animal welfare was actually one of the first few sectors of public health and should remain a priority, even though it oftentimes is not seen as such. Our third thing to note is that animal welfare is intertwined with human health and is a very important part of the overall community health. And then finally, animal welfare is not always seen as at the top of the priority list here in DeKalb County. That being said, our community collaborator, Rosemary Cobo, asked us to complete this community assessment with 2 goals in mind. The first one was to gain a better understanding of how animal welfare impacts the overall health of the community in DeKalb County and help explain how this issue is connected to public health. And the second goal is to uncover gaps in animal welfare in DeKalb County District 6 communities and identify facilitators and barriers to animal welfare. To address these, our community assessment is guided by these 2 questions. The first one being, how can DeKalb County District 6 prioritize animal welfare as a public health concern? This question also utilizes the sub-question of how can the county communicate the importance of animal welfare to the community? Our second question is, how can DeKalb County District 6 address the gaps and vulnerabilities in animal welfare and improve the state of animal welfare in DeKalb County? And this addresses the sub-questions of what are the immediate needs of DeKalb County to address animal welfare, as well as what are the barriers and facilitators to improving animal welfare in DeKalb County.
So now going a bit into the background of what animal welfare is like in District 6 in DeKalb County. So like I stated before, DeKalb District 6 inhabits a collection of organizations that work to provide services to not only animals, but to pet owners as well. One of these organizations is the Lifeline Animal Project. This was founded in 2013 and is one of the largest animal welfare organizations in DeKalb County. It provides services to help address animal homelessness. And in 2019, they built a low-cost shelter for animals in DeKalb County that was needed, and is one of the largest in DeKalb County. But it's still, while all these are successes, there's still some challenges that they face, such as overcrowding shelters, unregulated breeding, and inaccessible access to veterinary services that pets need. So what's actually the definition of the community? So like we said before, this purpose of our community assessments was to define this community as DeKalb District 6, which is actually a combination of District 6 and District 2, so a super district that includes the county commissioners, local animal shelters and service organizations that help support animal welfare in these districts, which are volunteer members and the staff, and of course, animals themselves. So a bit into some more statistics for DeKalb County. In District 6 at a glance, there are approximately 776,000 residents in 2023, and made up of 12 neighborhoods. And the three largest ethnic groups are non-Hispanic white, non-Hispanic Asian, and non-Hispanic Black African American. And most residents are in the middle upper class range. And they also have pretty good health organizations here, such as Emory Healthcare, Piedmont, Grady. And while these are high for human health indicators that help with high life expectancy and lower rates of chronic diseases, at least 38% of residents fall below the poverty line, meaning that they also face barriers to more basic pet care needs, as well as their own.
Okay, so for the sake of time, I will try to keep our literature review short and sweet, but the major takeaways from previous research indicate that public health and animal welfare are deeply connected. So evidence has shown that pet ownership actually has a lot of human health benefits, such as lowering stress, promoting heart health, or increasing physical activity levels. Additionally, pet health is a useful tool to assess human health because oftentimes the health of pets tends to reflect the health of their owners and thus affecting overall community health. However, despite this evidence, animal welfare is extremely underrepresented within public health research. So DeKalb County has made many previous attempts in the past to improve the state of animal welfare, especially since it started declining back during the pandemic in 2020. So the current initiatives include veterinary services at low cost provided by Lifeline Animal Project, pet neighborhoods used for housing, the SOTA initiative, which was proposed by Commissioner Michelle Spears to enhance animal health, with the most well-known initiatives being the animal shelters. However, just like Mike said, poverty levels, animal abuse and neglect, and then lack of community engagement and awareness have led to overcrowding in the shelters as well as burnout of shelter staff. So this leads to the question, what is the gap here? So based on this review, the major gap is the lack of community awareness about existing animal welfare initiatives and lack of engagement in advancing existing programs. Based on this understanding, our team investigated how to bridge this gap through perspectives of animal welfare program leaders and volunteers by leading conversations related to the barriers of animal welfare advancement, personal perspectives on the burden, and recommendations for improvement.
So now we will highlight some of the resources available to the community, which are critical in supporting animal welfare. These are all different nonprofits and organizations. So to begin with the Lifeline Animal Services, they have a variety of services, but I want to point out the Community Cat Program, which is where they trap, neuter, and return these cats to the community. And this is very important to point out, especially because cats can sometimes be overlooked. And one of these organizations having a service like this highlights that there is a critical need to focus also on cats and their well-being in the community. And then other services at these different organizations include vaccine clinics, assisting with cruelty cases, disaster relief efforts, and adoptions. And then to point out specifically the DeKalb County Animal Services, they also partner with Lifeline Animal Project to run the animal shelter. And this is where they take care of all different kinds of animals, So their collaboration and the work that they do is very important for the community. Next slide.
So this is a map of DeKalb County and all of the organizations that Sylvia just mentioned. And an important thing to note here is that most of these organizations are not located in District 6. The only one that seems to be right on the border is the DeKalb County Animal Services. And so this really highlights the need for District 6 to increase the resources within their county.
Our group attended a Emory event that was organized by the Center for Ethics as the Windshield Survey. And at this event, we got to hear from two different speakers from Emory as well as the University of San Diego. So this perspective helped us to really understand animal welfare from a wider perspective and to notice how intersectional approach is important to animal welfare. So for example, Professor Ani Satz, who was at the event as one of the guest speakers, she is also a professor of law at Emory School of Law. And her perspective provided more information about legal protection and that side of things for animal welfare. And at the event, there were also many different kinds of students from different backgrounds and studies, as well as community members outside of Emory, as this was open to the public. So this can events like this can be a good way to engage community and also create potential for more student involvement, as well as collaboration across different professions and organizations.
So to better understand animal welfare in District 6, we began by conducting 2 key informant interviews. For this, we used purposive sampling, so we were able to interview DeKalb County District 2 Commissioner Michelle Spears and DeKalb County District 6 Commissioner Ted Terry, with the support of our collaborator Rosemary Cobo and our professor. And it was important to gain perspective from Commissioner Michelle Spears since District 6, as mentioned by Mike, also encompasses District 2. And so we were able to schedule a Zoom interview where we used a key informant interview guide that covered topics such as gaps, vulnerabilities, and collaboration efforts that have been ongoing in District 6 that affect animal welfare. These sessions were recorded, and we use the automated transcription feature to develop transcripts that we later analyzed using thematic coding. Next slide, sorry. And so we found 2 major themes. The first one was the initiatives to increase animal welfare resources that have already taken place. So legislative efforts have led to the development of a plan to address the needs of the community regarding animal welfare. And so some of these initiatives have led to the development of a pet neighborhood that was recently opened to address overcrowding at animal shelters, as that is one of the #1 issues that the county faces. Another initiative is called SODA, or Save Our DeKalb Animals, and that has also helped to improve the quality of life in overcrowding of shelters, but there is still a need for additional legislative support and funding to expand these initiatives. The second theme that we found was that there is limited community engagement, and this is due to a common misconception that animal welfare efforts prioritize animals over humans and limits community support. And there is also a lack of coordination between community organizations, community members, and legislators.
To conduct our in-depth interviews, our participants were recommended to us by our community partner. We interviewed the advocates for DeKalb County and also Lifeline Animal Project. We held the interviews via Zoom and asked for consent from each participant before recording the session. Our interview guide was designed to target gaps, community needs, and efforts from local community organizations regarding animal welfare in District 6. After conducting the interview, one team member transcribed the recording and another reviewed the transcription to identify shared themes in the participants' responses. The first theme that we explored was limited ability to address animal welfare needs. One of the most significant challenges Lifeline Animal Project faces in addressing animal welfare is the large number of animals that require service despite limited staff and resources. They reported that many pet owners face economic pressure after adopting a pet and managing pet food and veterinary care, and ultimately surrendered their pet to the shelter. To address the community needs, they created the Pets for Life outreach program, which helps people with limited or no access to pet wellness resources. Pets for Life provides free pet food, veterinary care, pet supplies, transportation, behavior assistance, and more to help people keep their pets. The second theme we explored was the need for increased community engagement. Advocates for DeKalb animals agreed that the lack of funding was a significant challenge to advancing animal welfare in DeKalb County. Still, they also stated that the county's lack of awareness of animal welfare is an equal partner in this. To receive adequate funding to maintain animal wellness in the county, public officials need to be educated about animal welfare concerns in the county and how these issues affect humans as well. They believe many people do not recognize the positive feedback loop between animals and humans, in which the quality of life for both improves when they are together. Also, there is an extensive wait list for veterinary services due to the shortage of veterinarians and technicians. To encourage more future vets to pursue shelter medicine and support staff and opening additional clinics, the Advocates for DeKalb Animals partners with students at Auburn University's College of Veterinary Medicine.
So our final data collection method that we used was the use of focus groups. We conducted 2 focus groups, each with about 3 to 4 participants in each one. These included the DeKalb County Animal Advisory Board, as well as the Advocates for DeKalb Animals, both of which we got in contact with through our community collaborator. Our focus groups used similar methods as we did for our in-depth interviews and our key informant interviews, in which all focus groups were held via Zoom. Everyone was asked for consent, and then these were recorded sessions, which then were transcribed using Zoom software. And then the primary instrument that was used to guide these focus groups was the focus group guide, which covered topics regarding barriers to animal welfare, community engagement with animal welfare, and finally the connections with community health. So then some of the themes that we identified through these focus groups, the first one was that cost and access are barriers. So cost and access often prevent pet owners from caring for their pet, which in turn can cause them to have to surrender their pet to the shelter, which does not have the space for this high demand. Medical expenses are also high for both humans and animals, and so pet owners oftentimes have to make the difficult choice and decision of whether they should care for themselves or for their pet, which in turn oftentimes leads them to have to surrender their pet as well. And then finally, focus group members recommended providing low cost or free resources such as food, vaccines, and spay and neutering services to pet owners. Our second theme that we identified from these focus groups was the need for community awareness. So focus group members believed that more people need to be aware of animal welfare as a public health concern. One point that really stuck out to us as a group was one of our focus group members did mention how oftentimes when somebody is cruel and shows cruelty to animals, this is oftentimes an indicator that they have the intentions to show cruelty to other humans as well, thus kind of showing that connection between animal welfare and community health as well. Focus group members also emphasized the need for providing education for the public as well as for public officials to better understand and prioritize animal welfare in DeKalb County. And then finally, focus group members suggested using ideas such as using social media specifically to target either college students or nursing homes to host a pet day either on campus or at a nursing care facility. This way, this could help spread awareness and keep the general public engaged in animal welfare. So the triangulation process that we used for our data looked at the results from our literature review, our windshield survey, our key informant interviews, in-depth interviews, and focus groups, took all of these together and identified three main themes from all these different data sources. So the first theme was the lack of resources, which was identified throughout the majority of our data collection methods. So this refers to the needs of pet owners as well as the needs of the shelters in DeKalb County. Many of these include mention of more veterinary services and veterinary clinics, specifically that are low cost-effective preventative care such as spay and neutering, as well as vaccinations for pets, increased supplies and space, both for pet owners as well as for the local shelters, and finally, increased funding for the shelters here in DeKalb County District 6. The second theme that was identified was awareness, which refers to the knowledge and engagement of community members and public officials in the issue of animal welfare. So this includes increased community engagement as well as community advocacy for animals, education for community members as to why animal welfare is considered public health and why it is important, as well as increased awareness and advocacy for animal welfare among the public officials in DeKalb County. Our final theme identified through this process was that animal welfare and public health includes the treatment of animals and how it relates to the health of the community. So it includes better conditions for healthy animals, such as ending unnecessary euthanasia of healthy animals, reducing overcrowding in shelters, understanding of the community that pets are a commitment and should be cared for and not abused, as well as that animal cruelty can be an indicator of human cruelty. And that there should be increased human and pet interactions to prove overall health. So together, the triangulation shows that animal welfare should be made a priority in DeKalb County District 6. Specifically, animals should be well cared for by improving resources throughout the county. Community members should be made aware of the importance of animal welfare, and animal welfare should be treated as an issue of public health.
So now we're going to go into the recommendations and priorities. So we, as mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we identified 6 needs related to animal welfare, and we developed 2 to 3 recommendations for each. And we think that is really important for us to go through every single one, as this also contributes to bringing awareness to animal welfare. So please bear with me. So I will start off with number 1, the need to increase community awareness and engagement. So our first recommendation would be to continue to maintain the current community engagement outreach that includes door-to-door and community events, and doing and increasing the number of door-to-door and community events that take place. Our second recommendation was to increase social media presence. And so we believe that this can be done by already using the volunteers that are active on social media and just increasing the number of posts, increasing the number of engagement on social media that is already going on. And so this is just allows for a wider reach of audience. The third recommendation is just providing opportunities for direct communication and engagement between district commissioners and residents of the district to strengthen relationships and highlight animal welfare as a priority for everyone to be aware of, regardless of whether they are pet owners or not. And so we think that this would just be a great opportunity for commissioners to also just interact with the community and play a role in increasing community awareness. Our next need that we identified was the need to provide access to veterinary services. So one of the recommendations that we thought of was to collaborate with neighboring districts and counties to provide veterinary services at a lower cost. The second would be to collaborate with veterinary students from universities to help with their training while also making it more affordable to use their services. And so we did mention that there's already a partnership with Auburn University. We also thought that maybe that partnership can be extended to UGA's veterinary program. We know UGA has a really big vet program, and so we think that might also help provide more access to these services. The next need was the need to dismantle economic challenges faced by pet owners and address their community needs. And so the first recommendation was to continue to offer free preventative services such as spay, neuter, and vaccinations. We also recommend to offer free pet food and supplies through community-wide drives and create a community pantry that includes flea, heartworm medication. So we acknowledge that these are things that are already ongoing, but we think by increasing the number of free pet food and supply events through the creation of a community pantry, it would help expand provide more supplies and resources to pet owners. And we also learned that flea and heartworm medication can be costly, and it is something that is often forgotten by other, pet owners is something that will be necessary. So we think also including this as part of the community pantry would help offset some of those costs. The next one would be to increase the number of healthy pet events. So these are also events that are already happening, but they only happen once in a while. And so we think if there's an ability to increase this number, it will also increase their outreach. And then lastly, the expansion of the Pets for Life program, similar to the one that is already ongoing in Fulton County. So essentially, we just recommend taking some of the initiatives that neighboring counties already have in place and seeing if that would be something that's feasible for DeKalb County. The next one would be to provide adequate shelter and resources for all animals. So this would be through increasing funding from DeKalb County to add more shelter locations, collaborating with other community organizations and universities to receive more funding. So an example would be to collaborate with an organization at Georgia Tech called Georgia Tech, it's an organization at Georgia Tech that focuses on animal welfare in their local community. And so we think just reaching out to other universities and working with other student organizations would really help also provide additional volunteers and people that are passionate about animal welfare. The next one would be to collaborate with animal shelters in neighboring counties to transfer pets to additional shelter locations. And lastly, expanding resources for continuous care for cats. So I think one of the main things that was emphasized during one of our interviews was that oftentimes when people think about pets, they think about dogs, and they tend to forget that cats are also pets that need these resources. And so sometimes when these donation drives are taking place, a lot of the donations are geared more towards dogs, but we also need to emphasize that cats also are pets that have their own food and supplies that are needed. So just emphasizing that. And then the next one would be to prioritize animal welfare as a public health concern. So this is obviously one of the main needs in the community. And we think this could be done by developing an educational campaign that defines animal welfare as a public health concern. And so essentially this would be by emphasizing why it matters, not just to pet owners, but also to non-pet owners, and what the implications are for the community at large. And then presenting, of course, these community assessment results to the Board of Commissioners to increase their understanding of animal welfare as a public health concern. So through this community assessment project, we were able to not only talk to the commissioners, but also to members of the community that are on the front lines working to combat all of these issues that they see day to day. And so we just appreciate the opportunity to be able to communicate what they're feeling and what they think they need as a community. And so lastly, we think that there's also a need to increase animal-human interactions, as this will also help the community become more engaged by providing them with opportunities to interact with animals. So we think or we recommend increasing spaces for humans to have more interactions with animals through events such as dog therapy or equine therapy, and then community-involved initiatives that educate people on the meaningful ways animal accompaniment can contribute to positive health and well-being for humans. So essentially just allowing people to see that there are numerous benefits to owning pets, and that can also have a really positive effect on their mental health.
So for this community assessment, it is important to note some of the limitations that we did face. So the first one is time. Due to the fact that we are a student group and we are on a very semester-based schedule, we only had a semester to complete this community assessment project. So unfortunately, these time constraints did prevent us from getting an even more in-depth look into the state of animal welfare. There are tons that we could have looked at, but unfortunately, time prohibited us from doing so. Communication was another limitation to our project. Unfortunately, we were not always able to get in contact with all of our participants or all of those who were suggested to us, which may have caused some perspectives to have been left out in this community assessment. Similarly, we had a small sample size specifically with our focus groups. We were only able to recruit about 3 to 4 people in our focus groups when our goal was to get at least about 6. And so unfortunately, this small sample size may have limited the scope of our research and once again may have left out some important perspectives to this project. And then finally, our final limitation was sampling bias. So all of our participants that we interviewed and conducted in our focus groups were all community leaders in animal welfare. They already were with an animal welfare related organization. And so this excluded any community members who may not have been affiliated with any of these organizations, such as just general public pet owners. And so this may have excluded their perspectives as well. However, besides these limitations, our project does present a few innovations. So our project is one of the first to address animal welfare in DeKalb County, at least through Emory University. So our work, we hope, may allow future groups who may be in this community assessment course at Emory University to continue the work that we have already completed, hopefully to help narrow the focus of animal welfare and to be more specific in their scope. Additionally, it may also help them to identify other community members to work with and to really help address animal welfare in DeKalb County District 6.
Throughout all of our interactions with community members through interviews and hearing more about the issues that are happening, our group has definitely learned a lot, and these are some of the main lessons learned that we would like to highlight. So to begin, animal and human health are very deeply intertwined, and we have definitely come to really notice this through our interviews, and understanding how intertwined the animal and human health are also helps us to more wholly address public health issues. And we also see how animal issues point to community struggles. As Laura mentioned earlier, we learned about how animal abuse can be an indicator of also abuse happening in other areas to not just animals, but other humans or even to just people themselves. And we really need to see more close collaborations between communities and local animal organizations. Our final point is that animals and their companionship also really offer us mental and physical health benefits, which is why we really see we really stand by the need for more animal and human interactions as well. And then just a quick note to say that we really appreciate also the volunteers and the staff, just everyone working to support animal welfare in the community, and that your work is very important to all of us.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap everything up, the main takeaways from this assessment indicate that community awareness and engagement has been and continues to be the largest barrier in advancing animal welfare, with additional economic barriers driving the crisis. So based on our findings, our major recommendations include increasing access to veterinary services, dismantling economic challenges related to pet care, and increasing community engagement to existing initiatives. So that is our community assessment. We just want to one more time thank all of our collaborators and contributors for guiding us through this project and for providing their empowering perspectives about animal welfare. And so we hope that our recommendations for DeKalb County District 6 can really help drive future animal welfare projects. Thank you so much.